Hey guys, welcome. I'm going to give everyone a second here to log in and then we're going to start the show. All right. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. Welcome to today's webinar, co-hosted by the New York Oracle User Group and Oracle partner Viscosity North America. We've got Oracle ACE Director Jim Czuprynski presenting for us today. And I'm so excited to have him here. This is a live webinar, so please feel free to submit questions throughout the webinar. Jim will get to them as he can, whether it's during or following today's webinar. If for some reason we need to go over in time, you will have access to the full recording if you've got to drop off or if you want to revisit some of this content later. So again, thank you guys for joining us, and thanks to the New York Oracle User Group for co-hosting these events with us. My name is Monica Lee, and I am the Marketing Director here at Viscosity, a full Oracle consulting firm, Oracle Stat consulting firm, with expertise in Oracle database, including RAC, Apex, zero downtime migrations, performance tuning, and so on. We've had decades of experience in infrastructure, including engineered systems, but I'll get into more of this later. First of all, I kind of want to go over NYOUG. If you're not familiar with NYOG, or if you're not in the area, just bear with me for a moment. But if you are and you haven't been involved, please do so. The New York Oracle User Group was founded in 1984 for the exchange of ideas and assistance among users like you. Oracle software products. We've got volunteers running the user group. So thank you to them. You've got consultants and vendors of Oracle related products and services also involved. And then folks like you, if you're just an attendee, if you follow them online, or if you come to events like this, thank you so much. They have individual, corporate, and educational or nonprofit membership plans. And for more information, you can check out their membership page through nyoug.org. You can also follow them at any of these places: Twitter, Meetup, LinkedIn, Facebook, and again at their website, nyoug.org. Again, if you're just joining us, it is a live webinar, so take advantage of the time you've got here with Jim presenting to ask him questions along the way. I'm going to run through this viscosity couple slides I have for you, and then we're going to get started. All right, so Viscosity is who I work for. I'm the marketing director there. Hopefully I've met some of you guys at some conferences or events. And if not, I hope to see you. We're going to be at a couple conferences this summer, Blueprint 4D and Kscope 23, which is here in, one's here in Dallas. Kscope is in Aurora, Colorado. So at Viscosity, our mission is to enable business transformation at a time when companies must change to survive. We are a full Oracle Stat consulting firm, and these are the three pillars on which we are built on. So data, apps, and cloud. We've been migrating and upgrading our customers to Oracle Database 19c the last couple of years, and we host monthly workshops through orapub.com. As you can see, a couple things I wanted to highlight here in the pillars, and then across the bottom are things that we offer across all pillars. So whether that's assessments, workshops, proof of concepts, etc., you name it, we're happy to help you guys out. This slide just represents some of our executive staff members and management. They are recognized speakers throughout the Oracle community. So if you've not attended a session by them, you can catch them at Quest Community's Blueprint 4D or ODTUG's Kscope, or perhaps not this year or in the past. They are regular speakers there. All right. Couple services to highlight again. The one I always like to point out here the most is Oracle License Management. We've got several people on our team who came from Oracle, in fact, and they are great at just helping our clients make sure that they're paying for only the things they need to pay for, and that they're getting the most out of their Oracle investment. So we're kind of here to help you carve out that path. We can also help you get some deeper discounts as an Oracle partner. So whether you partner with Viscosity or not, I always recommend going through an Oracle partner to help you with those things. Okay, these are some books that we've published over the years. The newest ones I want to highlight are Oracle Database Performance Tuning, Upgrading Oracle Databases, and Oracle on Docker. And almost done here. So orapub.com is now powered by Viscosity. It came into the Viscosity family the start of 2022, and it was created by former Oracle employee and Oracle ACE director Craig Shallyhammer. This is where we house all of the recordings for sessions like this today, as well as slide decks. The guys from my team that present at the conferences, they also stick their slide decks in there if you want to revisit them. So you can go to orapub.com and create a free membership, and you'll have access to all these things. If you decide to go for a paid tier, there's also live virtual training. They're normally like 2 to 3 days of live training at a time, and you get discounts on those. Unless you're our highest tier, then you get all of those included in your package. All right, so you will see an email from me or one of my team members after today's webinar with instructions on how to access today's recording. So with that, keep following Viscosity. Events.viscosityna.com is where you can sign up for webinars like today's, and you can follow us online as well. Make sure you get those reminders of what we're presenting next. And finally, I just wanted to remind any of you, if you're interested, check out Kscope 23. We go there every year, and we are a sponsor in the exhibit hall. So come visit us. Most of my team there this year is just going to be around Oracle Apex development. So check them out. And I'm super excited to have Jim here today speaking for us. He is actually part of the OD-TUG board. So with that, Jim, if you want to start your screen share, I'm just going to tell everyone a little bit about you. All right.
Hey, everybody. Here we go.
Yes. So,
and by the way, I am a Viscosity North America alumnus.
He
if that's
is.
the proper term.
Yes, and I always
loved every minute of it. Yes.
It's always
Go
fun.
ahead.
Okay, so Jim has nearly 4 decades of professional experience in his career in information technology, serving diverse roles at several Fortune 1000 companies before becoming an Oracle DBA in 2001. He's been awarded the status of Oracle ACE Director in 2014, and he's a sought-after public speaker in Oracle database technology features. He presents often at conferences such as Open World, Collaborate, OD-TUG Kscope, Hot Sauce Symposium, and all the Oracle development community tours, which is amazing, and also Oracle user group conferences and sessions, kind of like NYOUG has had, RMUG, UTUG, you name it. So Jim's authored many articles around database administration since 2003. He's also the chief storyteller for Zero Defect Computing, and as I said earlier, an OD-TUG board member. So thank you so much for giving us your time today. I'm going to hand it over.
Thank you, Monica. That was a very nice introduction. I appreciate that. I haven't done a webinar much this year, and I think I've done this only, this particular presentation only at a few events. So it's pretty exciting. Folks, I'm going to ask if you have questions. They're going to stack up in the Q&A. I'll get to them at the end because I got a lot to cover. Okay. But anyway, my topic today is really not very much of a DBA topic. You know, I really spent most of my time as a DBA in the old days, I guess. And I spent a lot more time in the Apex and Spatial and Graph communities. Why? Because the role of DBA is changing. right? As you can see from here, I've written a few books. Also, I spend most of my time in Illinois, but I have a cabin right over the border. Actually, we could probably reverse these two pictures because we got 6 inches of snow right on the first day of spring in Wisconsin last week, which was fun, except for the driving. I am not a lifetime athlete, as you can see from these pictures. By the way, that one of me with my shoulder broken because I broke my collarbone. That was 2 weeks before my very first K-scope event. So I was schlepping my bag around over a broken shoulder, but didn't want to miss that. You can reach out to me. Probably the best way is at jim@jimthewhyguy.com. I'm on Mastodon. I'm not on Twitter. I've been kicked off Twitter twice, and no one will tell me why. I'm serious. I do not know. And you can easily follow me on LinkedIn as well. So with that, I wanted to talk a little bit more about the ACE program. I'm an Oracle ACE director. There's about 100 to 125 of us in the world. If you know someone that is an excellent writer, speaker, presenter, even blogger, right? Any type of thing where they're constantly talking about Oracle and how to leverage it, please tell them about the ACE program. Right, you can just reach out. By the way, if you want to come in as an ACE associate, you can nominate yourself. The higher levels, I believe, for ACE director, you have to have more nominations from product managers and stuff. But you can get started as an ACE associate. What do you get for that? The ability to connect and network with some unbelievably smart people in the Oracle community, as well as product management and marketing people at Oracle. As Monica mentioned, they have, I believe, 5 ACEs, right, Monica, as part of Viscosity. And that's something that's rather unique among many companies. So this is a way to essentially get and give back inside the community. Briefly, I wanted to mention as well, I have a podcast with my friend and colleague, Liran Amitzi. Liran now lives in Tel Aviv, which makes recording sessions very interesting because he's 8 hours ahead of me and sometimes 10 hours ahead of a guest. But we talk about the stuff that no one really talks about to make you successful in tech. Believe it or not, 2/3 of being successful in tech have nothing to do with code. It's all about the skills you need to become successful. Everything from learning how to read a resume, do a technical interview, to build up a better resume, to learn about the diversity of skills you'll need, including things like public speaking, writing articles, and just even learning about things like management. So we don't talk about code. We do not talk about code at all. One of the more interesting ones we had recently was with a gentleman who's the husband of a friend of my wife, that I didn't even know this at the time. He knew Richard Feynman and essentially was a mentee, an acolyte of Richard Feynman, the famous physicist. And he had fantastic stories about growing up as a kid in essentially Silicon Valley at Caltech and learning at the feet of Richard Feynman. So we talk about all kinds of crazy stuff. Have a tune in, take a look at it. And finally, because I'm on the board of the OD-TUG board of directors, I must tell you about K-Scope 23. If you were at 22, you knew it was a nice COVID coming out. This year, hot food is back, which is good. We had hot coffee, but not necessarily hot food because of COVID concerns and other things. We have an amazing event coming up at the end of June. And I was just looking at some of the people that are going to be speaking there. We have tons of ACEs and ACE directors, tons of people that you don't always get to see at other larger conferences from Oracle, including, if I remember correctly, Connor McDonald yet again this year. It's at Aurora, Colorado at the Gaylord Rockies venue. I've been there. It is amazing. It's going to be a fantastic event and a lot of fun. And if you have to go to one event this year where you need to get trained up on anything related to Oracle, Apex, database, MySQL, perhaps even, as well as analytics or EPM, this is the place, seriously. So with that, let me tell you more about where I'm talking about today. I am thrilled to see what's happening in the world of electric vehicles. In fact, I'm shopping for an electric vehicle right now. I just got my first electric charger in, getting ready to install it in my garage. What's happened in the last year is amazing. With the onset of the Inflation Reduction Act, which was kind of a slim down Build Back Better Act, things are happening. EV rates, adoptions of EVs, 600,000 registered in 2021 alone. And by the way, that rate's not slowing down. Automakers are releasing tons of new EV models. If you haven't seen the Ford Mustang E, it's an amazing vehicle, right? You got $70,000 or $80,000, great, they'll gladly take it from you, but it is an amazing vehicle. But there's all kinds of ones that are coming out. Here in Illinois, we have very generous incentives to adopt solar energy. We're actually looking at putting enough solar panels on our roof. Now, we live in a townhome, we got to get approval for all that, right? But basically, it'd be enough to keep our house off the grid and charge my erstwhile, whenever it does arrive, electric vehicle. You're starting to see power walls replacing propane or natural gas powered home generators. In fact, I was talking with a friend of mine. He said, well, the bad thing about those EVs is that those batteries, they eventually, they wear out. Well, they don't wear out enough to the point where they can't be reused in things like power walls. And finally, you may not have heard of this, but in Idaho, they're building the first ever approved small modular reactor, a nuclear reactor. By the way, full disclosure, I'm invested in NewScale. It's a very interesting company, but it's essentially a nuclear reactor that goes straight down into the ground, about 60 feet deep, about 8 feet wide, and you can add on nuclear facilities as they're building out in Idaho. Why are they doing it? Because we aren't in fusion yet. We need something else to get away from the carbon standard. And so the point is, if I showed you this last year, you would say, maybe not. It's happening. It's not going away. One of the things that came out of the Inflation Reduction Act is something called the Justice 40 Initiative. And that's going to be what's going to be driving a lot of what I'm going to demo today. The Justice 40 Initiative said, we're going to look at every single state. And if you, Wisconsin, the state I'm going to focus on today, want to get a chunk of the billions of dollars that the federal government in the United States is investing in this, you're going to have to prove to us that the 40% of most underserved populations in your state are being taken care of. And interestingly, the underserved populations in the state of Wisconsin are actually in the northwest part of the state. The poorest people in Wisconsin, as I'll show you, are actually the Native Americans living on the reservations up in those areas, right? So think about it, right? Well, if we don't do this, only rich people will get access to the chargers for their cars. And if you think about it from the perspective of, don't people need deliveries from Amazon or from the Postal Service, right? The Postal Service is buying battery electric vehicles from, I believe, Rivian, as is Amazon, to handle last mile deliveries. So again, just because someone in a poor neighborhood in Milwaukee or Madison or Appleton, Wisconsin, doesn't have an electric vehicle doesn't mean that they don't need access to electric chargers. Yeah, EV prices are coming down, but it's going to take some time for everyone to be able to afford maybe a used EV vehicle. And prices are really coming down for base entry vehicles down into $30,000 to $40,000 range. With federal incentives, you're getting down into the $25,000 to $30,000 range, which, for a brand new vehicle is not unreasonable. Also, it's an excellent opportunity for people to get trained up in essentially rewiring the entire country. We haven't done anything like this in the US since the early 1930s during the Tennessee Valley Authority years. So, we're going to need 2 to 4 times as much energy output, electrical energy output, as we have right now to handle this shift. And there's excellent opportunities for everyone. So I'm really excited about this, not just because I want to buy an electric vehicle, but because this is an amazing opportunity for everyone. A couple of things to know about this. I was chatting with one of my friends, and he's like, I'm going to probably get a hybrid. And you can get these what are called PHEVs, right? They're partial hybrid electric vehicles. You can charge that with a level 1 charger. It's relatively cheap. But if you're going to get an EV, and by the way, here's a new terminology, miles of range per hour. If you're going to charge an EV overnight, you're going to need a level 2 charger. I just got my new GeoSpatial, I love that name, GeoSpatial 48 amp charger last week. And of course I have two because I need one for my cabin in Wisconsin. It's not going to help if I get there and I can't charge anything, right? But I'll need one here for my home in Bartlett as well. That one came in at a price of about $630. Plus I haven't even taken the federal incentive for that product yet. Now, a level 3 charger though, these are the ones that are typically have been built by Tesla as part of their supercharger or DCFC fast charger network. And so this is what really the Inflation Reduction Act, Justice 40 provisions are built around, right? That you can plug in and in less than 18 to 20 minutes, you're at almost full charge. I've got a ton of documentation on all this in case you're interested, but here's another interesting part. Where are you going to put the chargers? And who's going to put them where? True story, I have a nephew who until recently was working for a company in this that worked very closely with zoning for businesses and construction in the city of Chicago. And yeah, he's on the south side. So yeah, he knows a guy who knows a guy to help you get your zoning permits through. That's the company's job, right? To facilitate that. He recently went to work for Walgreens, the big, I don't want to say pharmaceutical, but the, grocery store slash drugstore, if you will, right? Where you go to get things. They're building EV fast chargers, at least 2, for every Walgreens in the country. And to do that, you got to do a site survey, right? Do you have enough electrical power where you are right now? You got to figure out how much physical equipment you're going to need. I was just in Denver for RMUG, and I was driving past a hotel, and here's a bank of what looked like, I don't know, they looked kind of like gas station pumps. And no, there were 20 DC fast chargers stacked up next to a Marriott. I'm like, oh, cool. So you need the physical equipment. You also got to plan for future maintenance. One of the big challenges right now with a lot of the DCFCs that are out there is sometimes they just don't work, right? It's not through vandalism. It's just that you got to keep them maintained. And finally, they're not going to be free, right? People are going to pull up, as I love this little picture here on the right, tap, plug in your charger, and let's think about Walgreens. What happens when you go get your prescription at Walgreens? 15 minutes. It'll be ready in 15 minutes, right? Every time you go in, even if you called it in, it's going to take 15 minutes. You can charge your car. You go in to get groceries. You can charge your car. If you're staying overnight at a hotel, charge your car. In the future, if you have a 2-year-old right now, their children, your grandchildren, will one day ask you, Grandma, Grandpa, what's a gas station? 7-Eleven is building out their entire EV charging network right now. Gas stations will become convenience centers. Now, I did some of this last year, so some of this may look a little familiar to you. In fact, if you were at Case Cup 22, this is what I presented in 5 minutes at our open mic night. What I did was, can I kind of build a model using Oracle Spatial? In this case, I'm using actually Apex, their new native map region, to actually figure out where chargers should go. And what I used was traffic hotspots. So the red little pins are hotspots in terms of where traffic is actually happening. The blue triangles, or if you're red-green colorblind, the triangles are actual physical chargers that exist today. And what I did is build a model that said, take a look if there's a traffic hotspot and whether or not there is a charging station within 1 kilometer of that. If there is, forget it. But if there isn't, show me where I could put a charger to satisfy that. And this is a very primitive way of going after this, right? Because guess where most of the chargers are going to be? Where there's rich people. Seriously, they're going to be near Tesla destinations. Tesla had a series of DCFC stations they built out. So this is extremely primitive, and it doesn't take into account the Inflation Reduction Act Justice 40 provisions. So let's kick it up a notch. First off, how are we going to find disadvantaged communities, right? Because remember, 40% of disadvantaged communities, well, what the heck's a disadvantaged community? We'll talk about that in a second. Where are they? What are the 40%? Which 40% are the most disadvantaged? Because if we handle putting a charger in or nearby, we'll talk about what nearby means. How close is nearby, by the way? What if we could do that? Would that satisfy the federal government so that we've covered the DACs? That's what they're called, DACs, disadvantaged communities. And what if we could get new businesses, Walgreens, Wegmans, Quick Trip gas stations? If you've traveled in the Midwest, especially the upper Midwest, Quick Trip is pretty much like the default convenience center. By the way, they also have huge truck stops. And yes, 18-wheelers are going electric too. It's going to take longer, but they're going there. What if, say, for example, Quick Trip, which operates several EV charging stations already, could be incented? We give you a little extra, my friend, if you would build EV chargers. So that's what we're going to look at here. So what I'm going to tell you about is how I collected some data. What about these DACs? Here's the good news. The U.S. Department of Transportation has already told us where the disadvantaged communities are. I literally see that link up there that I got red blocked. I clicked on that link and downloaded all the data that I need. And what's really cool is you can download by state or by region. And the way they decided to break things down is using something called a census tract. Now, a census tract holds between 1,000, I think it's 1,100, to about 7,200 people. So again, in a city like Milwaukee, there's going to be hundreds of census tracts. In the northwest of Wisconsin, there might be 2, okay? But they're going to hold the same number of people. And that's the whole idea. Census tracts, by the way, are identified by something called a FIPS code. I forget what that is, Federal Information Postal Service or some kind of thing like that, right? But the idea here is we've got discrete tracts of land, right, of geography that say these are roughly equal numbers of people. And we can identify easily from several different factors which ones are disadvantaged. Well, the trick was the file that I downloaded was called a shapefile. So when I first saw this is like 3 weeks before I was going to have to present this, I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do here? And I talked to some of the people that deal a lot with Spatial Studio at Oracle. I talked to Hans Wieman, who is one of the product managers, and he's like, I was asking him, do you have access to ArcGIS? He goes, no, you can use Spatial Studio. I've created several little videos here, and I'm just going to talk through them because these demos work perfectly. If you've ever been a presenter, you know your greatest fear is the demo going to work? So I create a data set. This is super simple. This is a product called Oracle Spatial Studio. It's free. Free. You have to run it on a OCI instance, but once it's installed, it's ready to rock. I grabbed the shapefile that I downloaded from the Department of Transportation, and I dropped it into Spatial Studio. I choose a database connection. In this case, it's called Spatial_Studio. It's pointing to, are you ready? An autonomous transaction processing instance. As soon as I do that, it goes, oh, I've discovered, as you can see here, data. Would you like to load it into a table? And I chose a table called DOT disadvantaged areas, I think, is the name of the table that I chose. I leave the table name, or I should say the data set name, the same. It's basically a physical file that's out there. And guess what? As I was downloading it, it said, hey, Jim, you idiot, there's actually a metadata table buried inside this. You missed that. And he went, okay, you know what? There's going to be some really interesting data dictionary information in there. Please, oops, I made a little mistake there, right? I didn't follow the prompts. Please download that as well. And so it built for me 2 tables. Have you seen all the code I've been writing? I haven't written a line of code yet, folks. The cool thing about Spatial Studio is it's a true zero code solution. I didn't write 1 line of code. So now that I have my DAX, what else do I need? Well, I need to know where the charging points might be. So what I did is I had 2 sources, one that I had last year, actually dates back to 2020, and it was a list of all existing alternate energy fuel sources, including hydrogen stations, compressed natural gas stations, anything that isn't a gas station, right? So I took that and then laboriously, there were about 400, I think, in the state of Wisconsin. I found about another 700 potential charging points. What did I do? I looked at gas stations that Quick Trip had that didn't yet have an EV charger next to it, as well as other things like hotels, recreation facilities, right? Things like national or state parks, grocery stores, pharmacies, anything like that, laboriously scrubbed from yellowpages.com and cut and pasted it in CSVs. Took a long time to do this, and loaded them up into a table called charging points. So now I've got that set of charging points. What does it look like? Here's what a query against that data looks like. And you can see under the status column, I've got PLN for planned, ACT for actual. And by the way, right there, about 2/3 of the way down there, you see that one? Washington House Inn, Tesla destination. So that's an actual level 2 charger that actually exists at, if you'll note, HTL, hotel. Why isn't it a level 3 charger? Dude, it's a hotel. You're going to charge it overnight. The other ones that are all planned, by the way, are going to be level 3 chargers, right? Because that would make sense. And if you notice, there's Walgreens drugstores, CVS pharmacies, Quick Trip gas stations, etc. So I've got about 1,100 potential locations, but there's a problem. I have full address information, but I don't have GIS attributes. I don't have latitude and longitude. So I have no idea where the heck some of these things are. Okay, I've got their address, but not to be able to use it in concert with the disadvantaged communities. So I used Spatial Studio. And what I did is create a new Spatial Studio data set, this time not from a shapefile, but from a table. I picked a table called, here it comes, charging points. And so I went ahead, had Oracle Spatial Studio loaded up, boom, it's done. And it goes, oh, you know what? Spatial Studio says, I don't see any spatial attributes. Would you like me to add some? So I went in here and I could have just said, hey, do these as separate columns, latitude and longitude. And by the way, if you prepared SDO geometry data types before, you know this isn't trivial. You have to add a geocoding data type of SDO underscore geometry type. This thing actually just went out, let me name the SDO geometry type, loaded it with data, and now with 1 or 2 mouse clicks, I'm going to validate the data to make sure that there are no null or non-matching or non-viable data points. And so you'll notice here that I'm just going to say, please validate it. In other words, it's going to come back and tell me whether or not every single one of these has a valid latitude, longitude. Also, as I'm validating this, you may not have noticed it, but it also built a spatial index. If you've worked with SDO geometry types, you know you've got to have a spatial index so that you can make sense of where everything is. Oops, I think I just repeated this. Let me go to my next slide. Here we go. So I've got those charging points all geocoded. How can I use them? So I'm just going to show you a quick demo here of how to do that. I'm going to go in and find a project. I have one new called NEVI Map Layers, NEVI, which stands for National Electric Vehicle Initiative. I'm going to take the charging points data set and I'm going to drop it onto a map. So here I go into Spatial Studio. I say, hey, for this project, make me a map. You'll notice the map is big for starters and empty. And now I'm going to simply drag and drop charging points into that map. Now I've got this particular one filtered just for Wisconsin, right? And here are all the maps. How much code did I write? Did you notice? Not a darn line. Let me show you live how that really works. Let me go over to my active Spatial Studio. Hey, look at this. It's the same one that I just showed you, but here's something else you can do. Let me show you how, let me show you how to log into Spatial Studio again. Let's see if I can do that real quickly. Sometimes that happens. Let me return to my active project. Oh boy, she's going to be a little difficult today. Sometimes you have to refresh. Let me sign out and sign back in. Just takes a second. And of course, I use something like Keeper to save my passwords because I just don't have the brains to do that. I'm back over there to get to my place here. Where did you move off to? More beautiful things to show you in just a second. And here I am logged back in. Look at that. It said, hey, your project has unsaved changes. Yeah, I know. Here's where I started, right, folks? Let me show you one other thing. I have another data set, and all this one is are lines. What is it? It is a list of all major Wisconsin roads. And boom. Now, why would I care about the roads? Isn't it on the map already? This is actually another map layer, folks. Here's why. One of the other ways you could satisfy the Justice 40 initiative, or really the IRA initiative, is by proving that every 50 miles on a major road, and again, as with most government documentation, begging a visit from a lobbyist, is what is every 50 miles on a major road? What's a major road? Well, in this case, it's all US and interstate highways. And yes, there's a difference between US highway and interstate highway. I've just dropped that in there, and now I've got a map. I'm going to use this later, not in this presentation, but in later experiments, to actually play around with figuring out how to put every 50 miles on major roads, how to put an EV charger there and do it equitably. But that's for another project. I just wanted to show you how easy it is, literally how easy it is to use Spatial Studio. True no-code solution. Back to my slides. So, what about Apex? Well, a couple things I want to share with you. I'm going to skip through these slides relatively quickly. One of the things you can do with Apex native map regions, can you display points? Sure. Can you display lines like roads? Absolutely. As layers. Can you display polygons? Yeah, they're called areas, right? We're going to use those in a minute. Can you display a heat map? I did a presentation for the same application last year, and I show you how to display heat maps as different types of activity. Remember, I talked about traffic counts to show you in different ranges or colors how those are. And finally, you could do something called extruded polygons. Super easy to do. Here's an example of taking data for the state of Wisconsin from that DOT disadvantaged layers table that I built, and I'm going to order the data by total population ascending, and I'm only going to pick the first 250 rows. This is just an experiment. What do I get out with? Well, I do have to specify either a latitude longitude column or an SDO geometry type, and that's what I'm using here. And I'm going to use population and income, because that data is actually built into the DOT disadvantaged layers, the DACs, as we talked about them, and use them to display things a little bit differently. So here's what this looks like on my, excuse me, on my slide. I'm apparently allergic to extruded polygons, but let me show you what it looks like in the real world. Here I am in my application. This is my Apex application, my 2.0 version of WTFC, which, by the way, stands for where's the fastest charger. And I'm inside this particular screen called top disadvantaged areas. And so what I've got here, check this out. Here's a list of all chargers within those 250 highest population areas in the state. And here's a list of also, as a secondary layer, every single planned circular, or I'm sorry, active, actual, or brown square charger in the state of Wisconsin in those particular 250 areas. And note, I can do things like zoom in on this particular disadvantaged community and see how many residents it has and the total income for that particular area. Oh, this is confusing, Jim. I just don't like the 3D thing. I'm getting a headache. Okay, here you go. You ready? Here we are back in 2D. 2D, 3D, 2D, 3D. You can do it either way. And I think you can even, I haven't had a chance to play with this much. You can actually rotate this so it's more or less inclined, right? This is, I think, a 30-degree angle. You can control all of this inside a native map region. So that's a pretty cool little thing. I just wanted to share that. That's a really neat little thing that you can do with extruded polygons. But wait, let's talk about what we really set out here, which is, how do I satisfy that 40% requirement for all my disadvantaged areas, my disadvantaged communities? So simple. I'm going to use the native map region to calculate whether or not I can actually find enough chargers within these 40% most disadvantaged communities. There are about 1,108 DACs, or census tracts, in the state of Wisconsin. 40% of them would be 450. If I get the bottom 450 covered, I've got compliance. Notice that, however, if I look at planned and active chargers, and I say within a distance of 0 meters, I only get to 53%, roughly, compliance. How can I improve it? Well, let me show you the code that lays underneath this. This is a cool little thing. I really had fun making this. Let's talk about the blue and the green boxes here. One select statement. Actually, I cut a few things out of here. I had to use specific indices, SDO indices, spatial indexes, I should say, within one of the queries, but the names of them are so long, I just stripped them off here. Let's take the blue point first. That blue box says, here are the charger locations. Notice I've collapsed in address, city, zip code. And also, I'm decoding to color and icon the types of pins or icons I want to use and what color they are. The reason, by the way, important point. I had a gentleman in the class that I was teaching, the demo session I had a few weeks ago. He was red-green colorblind. Always make sure when you're displaying an icon that you display a different shape icon, because for him, he was just like, well, that brown and blue thing, those look almost exactly the same. Oh, they're different icons. Always take that into account, folks, that somebody may be red-green colorblind. 1 out of 5 people have some degree of color blindness. I do for electric blue. It just doesn't look right to me. That bottom green box. Here's where we come up with the 450 most disadvantaged. Notice I'm ordering by what's called the summary disadvantagedness score, some this, some that. No, just joking. Descending, right? And then I'm also ordering by population ascending, right? And fetching only the first 450 rows. Boy, I love fetch first. It is such a sweet little thing. So how do I intersect these with that pink box or middle box? Sorry, in case you're pink colorblind. And I'm saying within the same distance, I'm basically saying, look at the disadvantaged areas geometric attribute and the charging points geometric attributes. Essentially look at their spatial indices. And if you're within a minimum distance, notice that's at P1410 minimum distance for a unit of meters. If you are within that distance, so for example, if P1410 minimum distance was 10 meters, I've got to be within the boundary or close enough to the boundary of the spatial area represented by a census tract. I can be within 10 meters of it. I don't have to be within it, but I could be as close as 10 meters anywhere within that polygon. That's basically what this code does. Did it take a little bit of time to get this together? Yeah, it took a few hours to really find out what was the most efficient way to do it. But that's basically all that I needed to tie it together. Super easy to do. What comes out? Well, here's an example. I'm focusing on the area of Appleton, Wisconsin. And yes, it actually is one of the disadvantaged communities. There were a few disadvantaged communities right around here. And notice that with a 0 distance, in other words, you've got to be inside that polygon, right inside that DAC. For the entire state, I only got to about 53%. If I increase that to 150 meters, in other words, you'll notice more of the brown and, I should say, square and circular points show up on the map, then I've expanded my compliance to almost 87%. Let me show you live how this actually works. So I've got this guy here called optimal DAC positioning. And if you're starting to catch on, right, if you think about this, I have to write more code here. Okay, so here's the entire state of Wisconsin. Let me zoom back. You can see that I've only got about 55% compliance here. And I don't have all the disadvantaged communities are listed here. One interesting thing I wanted to zoom in here is, let me zoom into the city of Milwaukee. And Milwaukee has a significant Hispanic and Black disadvantaged communities, right? It's a major city in the United States. It's got almost 1.2 million people. You're going to have poor people living there. So notice, however, that the DACs are very small because they're not based on area. They're based on number of people. Versus if you look at the top of the state up here, right? Oh my gosh, there's these huge census tracts all the way up towards the top. Some of these are, dozens of miles in space. And notice all I got to do to see which one it is, I can just mouse over it. It only has 1,416 residents. And like I said, these are the Native American reservation areas. And actually pretty much super rural areas. I mean, the median income is $31,000. These are not rich areas. So again, if I set the minimum distance to only 1 meter, 39.36 inches, my friends, if you're in Europe, I don't get very high compliance. What if I take it up to 250 meters? Let's do 150. Let's see what happens. 150, I change it, I hit enter. That same query fires off again. And now you'll notice that I repaint the map. Oh, okay, I'm up to almost 87% compliance. And notice again, where are most of the chargers? You want to take a guess? They're going to be down here in the bottom of the state. Sure, because there's more potential gas stations, pharmacies, shopping centers. Ain't so many up here. What happens if I take it up to 250? If I take it up to 250, I've got 100% coverage. So again, remember, legislation says near a DAC. Is 250 meters, which is a quarter of a kilometer, is that close enough? Don't know. The point is, we might be able to satisfy this by having Walgreens or CVS or your local grocery store encouraged to simply build a charger close enough to one of these areas that it might not knock out more than one area. So this is a great little display of what you can do with the Apex, with the native map region. I'm not done. We have a little bit more to cover. I showed you this, showed you that. By the way, notice that I got to 100% with 500 meters. We actually showed you could do it with 250 meters. And yeah, the cool thing about Apex is there's all kinds of things, like I can zoom in on that disadvantaged area and see what their average income is and how many people live there. Notice for this one near Stevens Point, Wisconsin, it's a university town, by the way. Average income is only 32,000. They're university students. That doesn't make that certainly makes sense. And I can drill in and see, oh, there's an actual charger there for Quick Trip number 338. I don't know what the number means, near the town of Plover that satisfies that qualification. Also, some other neat things. This is not as detailed as I want it to be right now, but I just want to run you through this because I know we're getting short on time. I can also take a look at the disadvantaged communities data set. There are 30 different factors, for machine learning exercise features, all the way down to how walkable is the community, the DAC itself? How much is the average fuel cost? What do people normally travel to work? How many vehicles are there? Even things like how much environmental pollution is there? So I built a new view that glues together stuff from charging points and the summary DAC scores. And guess what? Look familiar? Yeah, I basically said, show me everything where there's at least a charger within 1 meter of that area. And then I set a support vector machine learning algorithm against it to do some classification. So here I'm just using the FIPS code as my unique case ID and the DAC summary score. By the way, what they did is they built 6 different categories of everything from environmental, how environmentally disadvantaged is this community? How poor is the community? How many people of color live in this community? How many people over the age of 65 live in this community? How many people with disabilities, and so forth? Remember I told you about those 30 plus features? And we're just going to take a quick look to see from some of the views how accurately these different attributes, and I just looked at 2 of them, the average annual salary and that DAC summary score. Basically what the DAC summary score is, they said for the 6 themes, score it from 1 to 0, right, to give it a range. And if you got to a 1, make the DAC summary score add 1 to it. So if you had a DAC summary score of 6, this is the worst possible place in the state to basically live, right, in terms of being disadvantaged. 5 better, 4 better, 0 or 1, you're rich, basically, is what it comes down to. And it couldn't just, we're not talking just money rich, we're talking advantagedness, in terms of how good your life would be. So again, what we're seeing here is some interesting variations, the linearity of classifications. What I really should do is have this on a little graph to show you how well the DAC summary score actually predicts how disadvantaged a community is. Likewise, I also played a little bit with explicit semantic analysis. This is probably not the best one because this is really aimed at classification for text documents, but just for fun, I decided to play with this a bit and see how that model worked out. And here's some interesting things. These are all different types of, attributes that let me look into how the different attributes like the environmental score, the equity score, the health score. Yeah, we even score people on how healthy a community is, how many hours they travel to get to work every year. Annual travel hours, right? How many charging points are available? And so here are the variabilities of these, right? And so we have an idea of how wide or how far from the middle, right, from standard deviation these different potential scores may actually contribute. Again, finally, I will get into throwing these into some sort of graph that makes better sense. But you get an idea that you can apply machine learning techniques against this. Where am I going from here? I want to take the complete disadvantaged community data set, all existing charging points, right, that I do know about, because I do know where those are. I actually have that data set as well, and see what kind of machine learning algorithms. By the way, there are spatial machine learning algorithms as well, and see what other interesting things I can figure out. I want to figure out that 50 miles, every 50 miles thing on US interstates and state highways, and I'm going to pick Wisconsin as my test case to see if I can build a machine learning model that I could apply to an upper Midwest state, or Illinois, or Michigan, or Indiana, or heck, even Texas. Even Texas might be badly. What did I learn? First off, two things. Bountiful public data sources. I didn't even get into all of this, right? There are tons of really cool data sets out there, terabytes worth of data that you can play with. And if you don't have the time to play with Apex, if you're not a coder, if you don't know how to build a web service inside Apex, don't use Spatial Studio. I showed you how to use that to actually geocode your data and play with the data a little bit in Spatial Studio. You don't have to write a line of code. You want to get into it more? You want to play with it? Man, this new native map region is unbelievable with what you can do. So you can use Spatial Studio to kind of prove out your initial thoughts and use it also for things like geocoding. By the way, any tool that you use, remember I had that little SDO distance thing that I had in that one SQL statement? Guess what? Underneath the covers, Spatial Studio uses exactly the same mechanisms. So you're not learning new things. You don't have, which may or may not be cool, but the idea is whatever you use in Spatial Studio transfers to the native map region in Oracle Apex. And with that, time to see if anyone has any questions. I have some great links here. By the way, we're going to make this entire presentation available to you, including the videos, because that'll really help. But back to Monica or whoever's listening. Do we have any questions?
Last call for questions.
100% comprehension. Everyone understood everything.
Well, thank you so much, Jim. If anyone thinks of any questions before we sign off today or even after the fact, you can just forward them our way. Again, you'll have an email from either me or a colleague in your inbox, probably tomorrow afternoon is my guess. And you'll have access to the recording, the slides, and then feel free to ask us any questions we can direct over to Jim. And of course, if you have any questions about NYOUG or viscosity, you can include those as well. So thank you so much, Jim. Great
This was
hour.
fun, Monica. Thank you.
We always love having you. Jim truly is a great storyteller in whatever content he decides to share with us. So always a pleasure, Jim. I hope to see you soon. If not soon, I will see you at Kscope 23.
You darn right you will.
And hopefully any of you listening today, you come out and join us. It is truly one of my most favorite conferences. And I go to a lot of conferences. So it's a good one.
Thanks, Monica. We appreciate all that. And by the way, viscosity after party events are simply legendary. Just I'll put that in there.
Possibly infamous.
Let's just go with legendary, okay?
Yes. Oh, but it's all so fun. So fun. So we're looking forward to it. We hope you guys show up at Kscope. Come find us at the booth. So many great sessions, so many great community things, truly. So if you're not familiar with it, at least go check out the website and the social media.
Please.
All right, everyone.
Everyone have a great day.
Care. Adam says thank you to you, Jim. So
oh, Adam, you're so welcome. No problem. We'll get the presentation out there on NYOUG shortly.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I hope everyone has a great day.